What's up guys, Bucky here, just on retreat here in Bali, Nusa Lombogan. One of the things that's pretty interesting about Bali is that it's really affected by the tides. And if you can see behind me, there is a bunch of reef that's exposed right now, and we've been here for a couple hours, and just a few hours ago this reef was probably in, I don't know, 2-3 feet underwater. And it reminds me of, just asking the questions in our own lives. What are the things that are underneath the surface for us? What are the things that we don't necessarily acknowledge? And what are the tides that we go through? So last night we did an exercise, and the exercise was called I Feel. And it was an exercise where you sat down with a partner and you basically just you just answered that question. I feel this, I feel this. And you basically exhausted that for 5 to 10 minutes, and the other person was just there to hold space. And pretty profound to see what comes up when we go just a little bit deeper than just the kind of average conversation. I mean, we spend so much of our lives in that conversation of how you doing, what's going on, what did you do today, and it's not often that we get to go below the surface. So I'm going to invite us all to engage in that activity at some point today, to engage and just to go below the surface and to share with people what's really going on for you and how you feel. And I'll start. So part of how I feel is I feel excited, I feel challenged, I feel motivated, I feel inspired, I feel scared, I feel expressive, I feel expansive, I feel trusting, I feel God, I feel the universe, I feel love, I feel sadness, I feel sorrow, I feel disappointment, I feel frustration, I feel joy, I feel energy, I feel light, I feel powerful, I feel still, I feel peace, I feel God. Interesting. When was the last time you took an opportunity to feel? I know that for me, it's something that I have to invite in, and it's not necessarily my natural tendency to feel. My natural tendency is to do and to accomplish and to move forward, and I love that part of myself, and I also acknowledge the part of myself that needs to feel and needs to have that intuition and needs to have that sensitivity to the different things that are happening in my life at different moments. And the truth about it is that when I'm in that space is when I feel the most fulfilled. It's when I feel the most joyous and the most intuitive. And it's a balance. We all have that balance between feeling and doing. A lot of people call it achievement versus fulfillment. I think it's a little bit different than that. I think it's really just about understanding different aspects of who we are, and really embracing different aspects of who we are at different times. It's a beautiful conversation to be with. Lots of ways to feel. I know that I've talked about multiple posts through journaling and meditation and things like that, but I think one of the things that's most profound for me is just being outdoors, being connected, being in nature, finding that sensitivity in myself through the stillness and through the quieting of the mind, or through the exhaustion of the body, doing enough things in my physical body where that stress, that anxiety, that doubt just kind of melts away, and what I'm left with is spirit. What I'm left with is the essence of who I am. And one of the things that I'm constantly working on in my life is the close connection to that, and how can I stay in the closest relationship. And there's lots of work for me to do as far as creating that to be a practice that's at a standard that is good enough for me. And that's the thing, right? Everybody has their own gauge, everybody has their own standards, and it's one of those things that only and it doesn't have to do with anybody else. So one person's standard is relative or irrelevant as compared to others, and we try to put ourselves into these these molds or these boxes of who we think we're supposed to be on these different levels. And you know, for a while we all end up looking to achieve the same things, you know, whether it's the relationship, the love and connection, or the wealth, or the travel, or the cars, or whatever. It's like we've been so conditioned, and we forget who we are, and we compromise who we are. And you know, and it's part of life, you know, it's part of what we need to do sometimes. You know, we need to be in that space of doing the things that are quote unquote responsible, or doing the things that are going to move us in a direction that makes sense, or you know, not being always able to answer the call because of a life situation. That's part of the transcendence, is the realization that there is limit, realization that the limit has come from yourself, and also the realization that you have the key to unlock the freedom for all the things that you want. But it starts with really knowing, you know, and that compromise, that level of compromise, if you're unconscious of it, you know, what's the result is that you start to lead a life that isn't in congruence of who you are, and isn't a match of who you are, and you start to feel that, and you know, universe starts to speak to you, or God starts to speak to you and be in communication and say, you know what, this isn't working, and things start to fall apart. And that's one of the cool things about being human, I think, is that we all have a guiding force. We have a guiding force inside of ourselves, and we have a guiding force outside of ourselves. And if we take the time to listen, it points us in direction. And for some of us, it's louder than others. For others of us, it's clearer. It's more sensitive. It's more subtle. But again, the invitation, like a lot of my videos, are just about finding what that is for you, and finding that sense of being alive that really inspires you to embrace who you are and to trust who you are. Going back into compromise, you know, again, we live these lives based on the expectations of somebody else and the conditioning that we've received, and we start to compromise who we are, and in doing so, you know, that intuition gets a little bit quieter. It gets a little bit quieter every time we compromise who we are. It starts to be a little bit more subtle. And a big part of my practice over the last, I don't know, I guess my whole life has been the willingness to answer that call, and the willingness to be okay with whatever the result is, and trusting and having enough faith to know that God, universe, spirit is guiding me to a place that is best for me to serve. And it's not always what people think, and it doesn't always show up in the ways that make sense, and we can't always connect the dots going forward. But when I look at my life, and I look at the decisions I've made, and I look at the transitions I've been through, and I look at the happiest moments of my life, and I look at the darkest moments of my life, it always goes back to the same thing. It comes back to, am I trusting and am I following my heart? Am I doing the things that are right for me? And am I being the person that God has designed me to be? And am I sharing that person, or am I hiding? Am I pretending? Am I living on the surface? So anyways, here we are in Bali. Beautiful place. If you've never been here before, it's just absolutely gorgeous. And the metaphor, you know, the mindfulness metaphor, the metaphor all around us, the communication that's always happening, the inspired action. You know, this video was an inspired action. I was sitting up with a bunch of clients, and we're just kind of hanging out. We're on retreat right now, and it's what came up for me. You know, it came up to go down there and shoot a video and talk about living below the surface and exposing the things that you don't always expose. You know, a lot of my social media has been about, you know, kind of the raw of life, and going out to go get it, and creating the life of your dreams, and so on and so forth. And it is a big part of who I am, you know, and there's multiple hats that I wear. You know, the subtlety is also a massive part of who I am. The stillness and the quietness and the introspection and the looking inward is a big part of who I am. And I think, you know, many tools to produce the same result. I'm actually on a healing retreat, and one of the reasons why I love the work that I do with transformational event hacking is that I get to work with clients from all over the world, and I get to work with demographics that I wouldn't normally work with within the programs that I run or the programs that I'm attracted to. And it's beautiful, you know, whether it's healing or it's, you know, motivation or it's inspiration or it's spirit or whatever it is, or it's, you know, physical health, you know, all paths lead to the same direction. All paths in human development and healing and personal development and motivation, whatever you want to call it, lead to the same direction, and the same place is to self. It's the center. It's the understanding who you are and the development of the cultivation of that in your day-to-day. So that becomes your common practice. And for me, the honesty is that, you know, my practice goes up and down, and it shifts and it molds, and there's different times when it's great, and there's different times when it's not so great, and there's times when I'm great, and there's times when I'm not great, and the constant navigating, and the looking to learn and to grow and to embrace all of it, and to be okay with it. You know, it's like to be okay with the good, the bad, the ugly, the sexy, the amazing, the fucking not the best, you know. It's like all those different things that we are. You know, I think we all come to a point in our life where we just get tired of pretending and tired of living a life that's an incongruence. So just a bit of a share, inspired by God, inspired by spirit, inspired by love. Just want to send you guys some love out there. Let you know that I'm thinking about you, and that I'm holding you close, and that, you know, this conversation is one with myself and is one with you. So lots of love from Bali. Continue to be you. Continue to trust you. Continue to feel you. And continue to grow and embrace all of who you are in all things. Best of luck.